I can't remember exactly when or how I first came across the Harvard Classics, but ever since that day, I have been on a mission to get a copy of the collection for myself. The Classics, originally published as Dr. Eliot's 5-foot shelf of books, are an absolutely massive 51-volume in total collection of novels, poetry, history, philosophy, scientific writing, historical documents, and anything else that Dr. Eliot deemed necessary reading to establish a well-rounded liberal education. But the size of the collection isn't really what's special about it. Any fool could copy and paste 200 books together in a Word document, hit print, and self-publish in an effort to profit off of someone else's contributions to the world. Fortunately, I can say with a high degree of confidence that the Harvard Classics is actually the most unique and complete collection of literature I've ever encountered. The collection was put together by Charles William Eliot, who was the president of Harvard from 1869 to 1909. A man who established himself really well as the ultimate stuffy nerd when he tried to ban playing football at Harvard, and was later quoted claiming that rowing and tennis were the only clean sports. Despite his anti-sporting rhetoric, Eliot was a prominent member of American academia at a time when it was much better respected and objectively more effective than it is today. Plenty of people would argue that the 50s and 60s were the true golden age of American academia, and I'm not going to argue that they weren't. But I will say that Eliot was one of the men best placed in history and proximity to academia to be able to accurately make decisions about what would fit into the category of required reading. It honestly shouldn't be surprising at all then that this collection contains virtually all of the most influential works of the past 3 centuries, at least up to 1909 that is, as well as a massive amount of literature predating America itself. Just as a thought experiment, a little while ago I opened up the table of contents and just made a note of everything that I had either previously read and thought was valuable, or had heard of in high esteem and earmarked to read later. That list ended up being so long that it's probably a bad idea to narrate the whole thing here in its entirety, but I also can't think of a better way to actually prove the point that I'm trying to make here. The first volume alone contains Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, Some Fruits of Solitude, and the Journal of John Woolman. However, this is honestly a pretty weak start. No offense to Ben Franklin, I actually ended up really loving his autobiography. It's probably one of my favorite things that I've read this year. But the second volume is an absolute unit of ancient Greek philosophy. You've got the Apology, Phaedo, and Credo from Plato. It's also worth mentioning here that Socrates didn't write anything himself. Almost all of what we know from his teachings, we know because it was documented by his peers and students, mostly Plato. So we're really not getting just Plato, but also the teaching of Socrates as well there. But you've also got Epictetus's The Golden Sayings, as well as every online Stoic's favorite book to tell you to read, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. The next 3 volumes are dedicated to the poetry of John Milton, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Robert Burns, respectively, and throughout the remaining 45 volumes, in no particular order of importance, you will find The Confessions of Augustine, The Imitation of Christ, Agamemnon, The Wealth of the Nation, The Origin of Species, Plutarch's Lives, Pilgrim's Progress, The Divine Comedy, Don Quixote, The Odyssey, The Voyage of the Beagle, Machiavelli's The Prince, Beowulf, The Song of Roland, The Alchemist, Uncle Tom's Cabin, Pride and Prejudice, The Astrologer, David Copperfield, the Charles Dickens novel, not a book about the magician who maybe or maybe wasn't hanging out on Epstein Island, The Mill on the Floss, The Scarlet Letter, The Portrait of a Lady, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Anna Karenina, Ivan the Fool, and Crime and Punishment, though I really don't know why that's the only one of Dostoevsky's books to be included. The collection also includes miscellaneous writings from John Locke, Berkeley, Hume, Descartes, Shakespeare, Voltaire, Thomas Hobbes, Pascal, Lord Byron, Faust, Euripides, Virgil, and Confucius, as well as fables from Aesop and the Brothers Grimm. That's all followed up by a pretty massive collection of early US historical artifacts, including the Declaration of Independence, obviously, but also the Mayflower Compact, the First Charter of Virginia, Washington's Farewell Address, the Treaty with Great Britain, the Monroe Doctrine, the Federalist Papers, the Fugitive Slave Act, the Emancipation Proclamation, the Gettysburg Address, and even the terms of Robert E. Lee's surrender. Even when it comes to the religious texts that are included, I mean, you definitely get the bog standard kind of Judeo-Christian artifacts that you would expect to find in a collection like this. You got the Book of Job, Psalms, Ecclesiastes, the Gospels according to Luke, the Acts of the Apostles, but you also get not the entire Quran, but a whole lot of passages from the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita in its entirety. Hopefully that list actually makes it clear why I'm so interested in this collection. I mean, basically, if you threw in a copy of Zorba the Greek and a couple of Cormac McCarthy novels, I would have everything that I'd really want to read for the rest of my life anyways. But what I found most surprising while conducting my little experiment was the fact that I didn't come across a single volume that looked to me like it had nothing to offer. Just statistically speaking, you'd think there would be a dud in the collection of the 50 books, and there very well might be, but it wasn't immediately obvious to me which one it would be, and I haven't managed to find it yet. As you can imagine, though, actually getting your hands on a physical copy of the collection is a bit of an investment. For a while, I couldn't really find anywhere that would sell a full set for less than 4 figures. However, if you're interested, I did actually find quite a few eBay sellers who were willing to part with their collection for exceedingly reasonable prices. Shipping is still a bit complex, to say the least, but none of that's relevant because it turns out you can get the whole thing for 99 cents. I'm not even being hyperbolic here. Completely by chance one day, I was messing around on my Kobo e-reader. I searched for the Harvard Classics in the store there, expecting to find nothing, but I found a result claiming to be the full set. Since it was so cheap, I went ahead and bought it anyways, expecting to find maybe just the first volume, or even worse, maybe just somebody writing a book about the collection. But when I opened up the ebook, I found that I now had access to not only the original 51 volumes, but also an additional 20 volumes that were published in 1917 under the title The Harvard Classic Shelf of Fiction. The latter is exactly what it sounds like, an additional 20 volumes full of nothing but fiction reading. To be completely clear, this isn't some kind of freak deal in the Kobo store. The same collection is $1.99 if you buy it from Barnes & Noble for a Nook, $1.99 in the Google Play Store, $1.99 from Apple Books, and please, for the love of God, have enough self-respect not to buy it from Amazon, but it's also 99 cents in the Kindle store. I actually can't think of a single other place where you could acquire this quantity of literature for less than the price of a pack of gum. And please, feel free to take that as a personal challenge. If you know of a better bargain now, or you find one in the future, comment section is always open. I will be here eagerly waiting to hear about it.